thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Alessandra Moctezuma, and I'm the Gallery Director and Professor of Museum Studies here at San Diego Mesa College. Thank you for joining us in this hot, almost like a summer night. I just want to say a little bit about this exhibition, Faculty Plus One. We do faculty exhibitions every couple of years, and I wanted to add a little bit of excitement this time, so I asked all of our faculty to invite a guest artist to show work alongside their own, or to sometimes collaborate. And we had some interesting instances where a couple of our faculty members actually invited their children to come and show their work. We just, maybe some of you saw the performance at 5:30 with Eve Laris Cohen, who's a child of Georgia Laris. And we also had some of the faculty who invited former students to show their work, and we had some faculty collaborating with friends and other family members, and so it was a nice way for us to reach out to this larger San Diego community. For the past 10 years that I've been here, I've been trying to figure out how to get from our college to connect to the different wonderful arts organizations that exist all over our city. And one of the ways that we've been doing that is that my museum studies students are curating exhibitions. Next week there's one that's opening at Space for Art, and that was a nice way to link us as an institution with some of these organizations. But the other way that I thought would be good to do this is to organize a panel discussion about San Diego arts collaboration and community, and invite some members of that particular community to talk to us, and for the students to learn about what each of them is doing. So I'm just going to introduce everybody, and we'll follow with their presentations. I chose a fancy name for this. It's a pechakucha. And pechakucha is a Japanese term. It was coined by a group of Japanese architects because architects tend to talk a lot, you know, and their speeches were very lengthy. So they figured out a way that they would limit that, and they had architects present so that they would show 20 slides and speak just for 20 seconds per slide. And so that's what it translates to, 20 slides, 20 seconds. And so we are going to try to do that, emulate that. Not that artists speak that much, but you know. So anyways, I'm gonna introduce everybody, and then we'll follow. And then at the end of the presentations, we'll have some time for Q&A, so people have questions for our presenters. And I'll start over on our right with Susan Myrland. She's the director of Silvergate Consulting and a graduate of Mesa College Museum Studies program. She served as a curator for the art labs at the 2011 Art San Diego Contemporary Art Fair. And the art labs brought together over 150 artists and arts organizations. Next is David White. He's an artist. He founded Agitprop in 2007 with the help of numerous other individuals. The goal of his space is to blur the lines between the individual artists, the studio, the gallery, and the neighborhood, and to reimagine the form of the gallery as a tool for long-term engagement with a particular locality. Next speaker will be Larry Caveney. Yes. Got it right. Well, I have my accent, but that's right. He's interested in using his performative and video art to create bridges of communication. And actually, we do have one video work by him in the gallery. He was invited artist of adjunct faculty Anna Stump. His work highlights the ways in which norms are constructed by societies by challenging their boundaries and laughing at his own conformity. He runs the Garage, an exhibition space which he curates from an actual garage in North Park. Next would be Nuvia Crisol, Guerra. She graduated from the University of California, San Diego with a degree in biochemistry and a minor in studio art. Her interest in art began as a way to assimilate her many experiences as a woman and a Latina. She's a painter. When she's not in her studio, she's involved in the San Diego community as a curator, promoter, and lecturer. Next up is Cheryl Nickel. Is an artist with a master's degree in landscape architecture from Cornell. She has exhibited installation and sculptural work nationally. Current work include a major environmental piece under construction, Path of the Just, at La Sierra University in Riverside, California, that honors world leaders including Desmond Tutu and Mother Teresa. She's a member of the Allied Craftsmen and a board member of Synergy Arts Foundation, and she's also a co-founder of Space for Art, which has contributed to energize the downtown area by providing a live and work space for artists. And last but not least is Barry Vasquez. He has a degree in political science and studio art from Stanford University. He served as assistant curator at the Centro Cultural de la Raza, where he curated Plan 9 from Aztlán and other exhibits focused on Chicana aesthetics and cultural issues. Since 2005, he has been a teacher at Southwestern Community College. Perry Vasquez is also a member of the Border Corps, a performance collaboration exploring the artistic process and the idea of mass creativity. Okay, well, thank you so much, and let's go ahead with the panel.
Thank you, Alessandra. So I'm going to time myself, and I rehearsed this, so hopefully it'll work out. But before I start my timer, I wanted to say that Alessandra was very flattering in her press release. She credited me as single-handedly organizing the art labs, which was definitely not the case. It was very much a collaborative effort. I would like to see a show of hands of everybody who was involved in the art labs as an artist, as support team, as friend, as contributor. We have lots of people here tonight, so it was really a fun process. And with that said, okay, here goes. So the art labs took place over Labor Day weekend, beginning of September, as part of Art San Diego Contemporary Art Fair. And okay. First, art labs are becoming a more common thing in commercial art fairs. The idea is to present work that gives a respite from all of the selling and talks more about ideas. What we did in San Diego that was a little bit different was we asked people to organize around a local theme and to speak to San Diego's identity and the things that make us unique. The other thing that was different was the scope of our art labs. Normally in a commercial art fair you might have 5 or 6 pieces, and we had, which button was that worked? That button. Okay, we had 19 projects all around the city involving, by all told, 250 artists, curators, volunteers, faculty, and students. We had a cluster up in North Park where there was Agitprop, Art Produce, Thumbprint. We had a cluster in East Village and around the Hilton. We had one at the airport, and then a cross-border collaboration between San Ysidro and Tijuana. And so it was very fun. It was very hard work, and it was very risky, quite honest, because there were a lot of things that could have gone wrong, but thankfully they did not. And this was one of the first pieces that went in. This was made by Nina Preissendorfer back there and Brian Zimmerman. And this piece was a very thoughtful, reflective piece, asking people to look back on their lives and in the midst of all of this art being created by other people, to think about what they had done. And this was a message both to the fairgoers and to the city. And it held up quite well, even when the Hilton staged a 9/11 memorial right on top of it. It held up actually conceptually and physically. And then this was the last piece that went in. It was on Sunday. And it's a community picnic made out of 1,000 feet of found fabric that Alexander and Savannah Jarman found as they were walking around the city. And we invited everyone to come down and bring their lunch and have this picnic. We had about 300 people, and they sat and talked about San Diego's future and what they would like to see in the city. We had this cardboard tree that Savannah made, and people pinned their hopes and dreams up on the tree. And this was lovely because people posed with it, they took their pictures with it, you had kids and dogs playing around, and it was really a wonderful day and a wonderful experience. This is from our cross-border collaboration between Casa Familiar and Casa de Tonel in Tijuana. And 20 artists were invited to create t-shirts, and there are only 2 t-shirts with each design. So somewhere out in the world you have a twin, and you may or may not know where your twin is. And the 2 studios were connected by video links, and here Melinda is Skyping with her collaborator in New York City to show her how this t-shirts turned out. Periscope Project has a shipping container for a Predator drone that they bought off of Craigslist. And they outfitted it to be habitable, and they put logos, as you can see the logos for General Atomics, and they put it in the back of a U-Haul truck, and they drove it around San Diego to General Dynamics, NASCO, General Atomics, and then they parked out in front and sat and had a beer. So it was taking the drone box back to its origins. There was definitely a theme of some subversive or clandestine action, which was intentional. This is Kevin Cow and Kim Garcia of K&K Collective installing their house that they created here at Mesa, installing it under the cover of darkness because we didn't have permission. And Drew Snyder referred to the art labs as a coordinated attack on San Diego's conservative aesthetic, which was very true. So the art labs included exhibits, performances, temporary installations, video, virtual. This was a piece that was at Art Produce. It was called Arterial, and it shows the San Diego freeway system as arteries and veins. And out back at Art Produce, there was more of a happening where people sent in video and photos from San Diego from the last decade, and the video was splashed up on the buildings, and the sound was incorporated into the music from the band. And they had these playful elements like the bowl of goldfish that had a camera pointed on it, so you could sit underneath the bowl and have your image projected up on the wall. So why do it? Well, one reason for the younger or emerging artists is to get your work seen, to build a resume, get your name out there, and participate in a very high-profile event. For Kim and Kevin, they built the house as a statement of their transition from students to professional artists, and so it made sense to transition the house itself from Mesa College to an art fair, an international art fair. This project, Invisible, they have portraits of San Diego's homeless, and they wanted to send a very powerful message about the beauty and dignity of the homeless people. And we put this right in the middle of the fair, right next to the dealer's booth, so that it was showing a different type of art and a different type of beauty. Stephanie Bedwell, who had a piece in the show tonight, she's an established artist, and she chose to participate because she could make something new and work with different people and work in different parts of the city. Space for Art, this is a photo of their rehearsal, and they had the largest collaboration with, I think 100-something people, 150, from the symphony and dance groups, and Patrick Stewart from Sushi, and they were putting San Diego on a regional, national platform to show what we can do and how we can work cross-discipline, cross-organization. And this guy, I don't know, he just wanted to dress up in a lucha libre mask and a skirt. This is Perry. And this is actually, Perry was part of a really beautiful piece that was called House of Tears that was, time's up. See, it was serious and sweet, and it was referencing shelter and sympathy and blessings. So in closing, what the Art Lab said about San Diego. Our art scene is very much like our high-tech economy. We are small, improvisational, entrepreneurial. We are a little wacky. And this last quote here, positivity breeds positivity, came from one of the Art Lab artists. And it was a very important message to leave with people that collaborations may be difficult, but they are, in the end, worth it. Thank you.
Okay, so mine is time, so I'm going to have to go really fast, I think. So my name is David White. I'm the director, founder of Agitprop. space in North Park, but extends outside of that space. And first I just wanted to talk about kind of the background of that space and some of my intentions with the space as a project, and then move forward to kind of raise some questions about collaboration and community, since that's what the subject of this panel and presentations are about. So I first started off as an artist, kind of working in a traditional way, working very much individually at an undergraduate degree in sculpture and video. And so on that first diagram, that was kind of the traditional way that our artist works, with maybe the white space being the public sphere. Excuse me. But then I wanted to work more in this way, where it's a little bit porous in terms of the institutional boundaries of the way things work, where the first one kind of channels through the gallery, channels through the studio, moves to the gallery, and eventually back again to the public sphere. But I wanted a little more of a movement, direct movement between those things. So that being said, I took as a starting point, in a way of trying to start over, took as a starting point those institutions and tried to call that my work itself. So instead of trying to make work to go into those spaces, that work maybe becomes the work itself. So I started this space called Agitprop, and it was based on these three fundamental questions. Can the space have a fundamental relationship to the neighborhood it exists in? What are the limits of structure and structurelessness? And what are the limits of permeability of institutional boundaries? And in a way, I view this as being part of my work, in that I see it as a performance, as sort of a long-term durational performance that has moments of more intensity or less intensity. And also this quote I also felt by Myrland in Euclid. I always saw performance as setting up a structure and having a lot of openings in the structure for other people to enter at will. One of the ways of setting up this structure, one of the strategies of setting up the structure has been through, that people could enter, has been through a hybridization of forms. And that is exemplified in this image right here, where we have a laundromat, and then Jacques-Louis David's studio in the Louvre here on the right. And this strategy has led to projects like this, which was a silk screening workshop held in the laundromat as part of a collaborative event called There Goes the Neighborhood, which was a 4-day event. That was also collaborating with the San Diego Museum of Art, and through a collaborative with other artists from UCSD. And so by holding this silk screening workshop in the laundromat, we had to use the dryers in the laundromat, so we had to kind of give the business a little bit of business to dry the inks on the t-shirts, and then also gave us a platform to engage the public. And then also working in other ways. So coming out of that project was this other project that was sort of a networked project called Could Blank Be a Museum? And it was in the teen studio at the Children's Museum. I'm working with UCSD undergraduates, also some Mesa undergraduates, and then with people in the neighborhood. And so, as you can see here, I worked with the UCSD undergrads, and they had to go to various small businesses in North Park and ask those small businesses for objects that they felt symbolically represented those small businesses. So the students had to have these conversations and trying to explain this whole project to the various small businesses in the neighborhood. And then those objects were taken to the Children's Museum and put on display as if they were artistic objects, sculptures, etc. And then we had these labels made in the corner that kind of described the process and the conversation that the students had with these various business owners. So this is a little bit of a messed up slide, but so this is another aspect of this, where there was a silk screening workshop that also stemmed from those questions of the t-shirts from the silk screening workshop in the laundromat that had 3 questions. Could blank be a museum? Could blank be a civic space? And could blank be a classroom? And then people would fill those in. The students would fill those in, and then on that board they would cover the city with their posters. In relationship to that, and kind of maybe training teenagers to put propaganda up around the city, in relationship to what's currently happening with Occupy San Diego and all of these Occupy Wall Street and things happening there, what I want to do is ask sort of a question in terms of these sort of 3 stages of process that I have gone through in terms of individual, collaborative, and network practices, that how these could relate to some of the things happening. And as I was working on this, there was this article in City Beat by Peter Hulsland that was talking about some of the issues and problems that they're having, and some of the critiques that people are having with the Occupy movement in relationship to that they structure everything around this consensus approach, and the problems with that, and that there is this not a clear message based on that, and in a lot of ways it's blamed on this consensus approach. So what I wanted to do is sort of a cost-benefit analysis, trying to use some of the Wall Street language to analyze these various practices. So with working individually. The benefits are autonomy, deviant ideas. You can have your own kind of ideas. You don't have to sort of clear those with anyone. It's very efficient. You can do what you want. The cost is isolation. The other aspect is you're easily co-opted because it's easier to market a person as an individual. Then with collectivism, the benefits, combined intelligence, more brains, strong bonds around singular issues, so you have a very tight relationship with the other people involved in the collective, and combined resources. The cost is loss of individual identity, the long-term commitment, and then also with the network, 20 seconds is really fast. The benefit is it's robust as a system, something can fall out and it can still keep going, but and also you can maintain some autonomy as an individual. It's mutable, it can change and adapt to different situations. The cost is weak bonds between those individuals. And I'll just have to skip ahead to this. Okay, so going back to the Peter Hoseland article, here's some quotes really quick, so I'll just kind of let you scan these really fast. But as I was reading the article, I saw that maybe you should go back to City Beat and read the whole article. But I saw that there's a lot of similarities in the problems that I have sort of been trying to work through as an artist in terms of questioning myself and these practices to what is happening with this movement. And so I just kind of wanted to finish with this question: how and when do we use these strategies most effectively? And as artists, if we can sort of experiment with these processes, can we help or critique these great movements that are happening right now in order to enhance their progress? Thank you.
Larry Caveney, I represent the Garage Gallery, and this is one of the exhibitions we had, I think it was 2009. I'm just going to show you a collection of exhibitions or work that represents those various exhibitions. There's my wife, myself. We started the Garage in 2008 in the respect of, I guess, sustainability, in the respect of having something to do, to make connections with the people in our neighborhood and the community, and also to curate. And here's a show by the nurse Barbara Goldsand that's observing through her work the idea of the medical gaze in respect of her relationship to the medical industry and also female in the respect of the medical industry. And a lot of her supportive material was from Foucault in respect to that. Here's a show about bartering, which was a system where we set up where a person can come in and leave something and then take something, basically. It's the idea of just an exchange without any interaction with money or anything. And the transaction would happen like you come in, leave something, and then pick something up. She picks something up there. And it could have been a service or an object, whatever. And it was a great way, a great relational aesthetic in terms of making connections with people that you haven't met before in the neighborhood. She landed a painting. And it was interesting because it's not the usual opening. And here's the live sound art performance, which was a recent thing we did, which all day from 12:30 to 9:30, where we had all these sound artists locally would set up their equipment, their technical devices, and their cans and bells and whistles, and one by one they'd go through their composition, and it's quite extraordinary. Here's a pajama party, which was this domesticated idea of sharing erotica, which was from Richard Charles Davis, where he transformed our garage into a bedroom where people could come in, check out some erotica, have some milk and cookies or tea or whatever, and it went on all day, and it was fantastic. Here's I Caught You Peeking, where it's an annual show we do based on the idea of the male versus female gaze, and you know, there's a lot of translations of this within the show. But it's an opportunity, like most of these shows, to give somebody a platform where probably they wouldn't have had a platform to show such things. Here's a show we had in response to the museum, the Contemporary Art Museum, in the course of the regional show. It was called the Reject Show, and it was all the people that got rejected from the show. So it was quite a lot of fun in that respect, you know, a lot of, you know, well, just hanging out and, drowning our sorrows, I guess. Here is the International Sound of It show, which is another sound show we have in respect of John Cage. Every year, I'll do a call out through Arts Association or Craigslist or whatever, and people will submit their MP3s within their sound art compositions. It was a lot of fun. And, I got to talk about that real quick. We actually show those, we play those compositions in respect of pitch dark. It's a seated situation, so we experience the sounds. This show here is from Dee Dee Harder and Richard Reyes, who's a local artist, and it's all based on storytelling, using the figure as a narrative. All right. Local show, 8 Women and Their Landscapes, where I think we have Jeannie Dunn over here, was part of the show, was just a survey of local artists that were thinking about landscape and their point of place. And it was installation. We had a visual haiku piece and a lot of painting as well, and it was a lot of fun. That was the visual haiku there, where there's ice on the top and it would melt and the rocks would fall and it would make this nice crackling sound as it would process into the evening. Yeah, right. Okay, so a lot of fun with this one. A lot of people showed up, we had sangria. And, okay, here's a show called Becoming the Animal. And, it was interesting because I was observing a lot of people. Every now and then I observed this surfacing of the idea of the primitive and the idea of people using animals as a metaphor. And I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's a cultural phenomenon in terms of a system of need, getting back to the primal self. Here's Jessica Rockage. She's from West Virginia. This is a piece that through the course of time, she was working in a grocery store, and she was collecting all these abandoned grocery lists, and which she would take and burn into a screen and make these editions of silk screens. Robert Gray, which is really one of our treasures here in San Diego, pretty much stays to himself. He's shown in the Art Institute Balboa Park before. But, early abstraction, kind of, in a constructivist vein. And I talked him in to show his work, and I went into his house, and it was all these paintings, just kind of caught up in these little nooks and crannies that never really seen the light of day in a long time. And finally talked him into, sharing some of it with us, and had a really good time, and an interesting character. And we've had 2 shows of his work, and he's also, a lot of people have bought his work through the garage. Another picture of the sound art, the live sound art. We're really lucky that no one called the cops on us that day, because it got pretty loud in the neighborhood. It's a residential area, by the way. And but I think a part of it is that it's kind of this open door policy. You see the door open, come in, and share the festivities. We did a show that observes the idea of flesh and blood in respect of the body as the medium, and in terms of the internal aspect of the body and also the external aspect. This is one representation of eating, where this lady from, I think it was Maine, she's really not a cook by any means, and she's putting these dishes together the best way she can. Coma, which was a combination of a couple artists locally that have been collaborating over the period of time. I think it was Maria Mora Vasquez and Conrad, I forgot his last name right now. But collaboration, and the thing about the garage, it is this relational aesthetic thing. It's also, for me, an opportunity to kind of like, if I got an idea, I can throw it out there and see who else shares a similar idea. And in between the shows, it's my studio where I'm, making paintings and so forth. So, but come on out. We have a show, the 22nd of this month, with the work of Hank Gross, which is a show based on his sister's tweets, based on some of her sexual escapades through the course of her life, and he's narrated through painting. So, if that's not a hook, I don't know what is, right? Right? Okay. We're good? Okay.
Whoa. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Alessandra for inviting me and letting me be part of this panel, and I'm really honored. I admire and have really enjoyed all the work that a lot of you have been doing for the last few years, so thank you for having me here. I'm a transplant from Los Angeles, and I came to San Diego to attend UCSD, top 10 school in science. That's where I wanted to be. And how it says, you can take the artist out of the community, but you can't take the community out of the artist. I graduated with a minor in studio art, and the major, I'll tell you all about that some other day. My name is Nuvia Crisol Guerra, and I found my niche in the San Diego community by going to events like Ray at Night. At Ray at Night, I started participating in group shows and had these great opportunities. That was the first time I had a contact with a Mesa College faculty member. Robert Sanchez was one of the members that would always go out and support artists and encourage young artists like myself. And that's how I fell in love with also Mesa and their fine arts program. So at Voz Alta, I was able to explore and to really experiment with my focus on growing up binational and as a woman. So this was a collaborative, and my first solo show, and also my first experience collaborating with the community. I did this show with the collaboration of the women that had a poetry workshop there. Fast forward 10 years, and I am back at Mesa College. I go through the Museum Studies program, and this year I have 2 current projects that I've been working on. Even though I was moonlighting as a scientist before, all that experience that I got was really the foundation for me to be in the community as a community artist. Part of the Mesa College Museum Studies program, my internship was at Sushi, which at that I knew the name, but I didn't know that they were in the East Village, and nobody really knew what the East Village community art scene was at that time. 2 years ago, it was still very quiet. But I had this great experience where it's such a small world. Once I get there, I become the curator assistant to Brian Goetzelleiter, who was my TA at UCSD. And also Sandra Ainsley, who's the director of AGIA project, and I was the curator assistant on that too. And then part of that was Space for Art. I did a collaboration with Space for Art and Sushi, initiated this East Village kind of what are the art spaces in the East Village. So we created a map. One of the things that I really wanted to bring to Sushi was the Guerrilla School of Arts, which was a collaboration in the community in the East Village, Barrio Logan area, between the Roots Factory and Chicle. Also, artist Isaias Crow. I wanted to be able to highlight all these artists that were creating work in the East Village with that opportunity that I had as a curator during the summer. So these were also opportunities for that East Village neighborhood to see what these artists and what the community was anxious to talk about. The bottom piece is Chicle's piece, Make Low Riders Not War. The top is Isaias Crow's exhibit, and then AGIA Project's exhibit. The first project that I really got into this last year was a collaboration between 2 artists, Enrique Lugo and Selena Calvo. And all of us felt that there was a really strong need during the economic downturn to give more opportunities for artists to make a living. So instead of trying to pimp our artwork and put it in galleries, a lot of galleries were closing, then we decided to create the space and make a traveling arts market. So we would negotiate with different promoters and tell them the cultural value that it brought to their event to have artists there. And in that, we brought a really diverse selection of jewelry makers, natural beauty product people, the artists, jewelry artists. Pretty much these new collaborations were forming between the artists itself, because then they started helping each other and making new products and how to promote their products. And in those collaborations, we started using different technology. One, like just if you have one of those scanning phones, you could scan that and you'll go straight to our Facebook page. SquareUp.com. All this technology makes it so much easier for artists to be entrepreneurs now. You could take somebody's credit card just from your smartphone, and also like Facebook and all these different social medias that are really propelling all our collaborators to work harder but also smarter. And everyone right now is, we have about 30 vendors that now participate in Mercado Golondrina, and our event also is happening once a month at the Queen Bees. The next thing is that writers love artists, and San Diego Writers Inc. is a local literary arts organization that supports the writers from all different backgrounds. And they needed art on their walls to inspire them. They wanted work that had a strong narrative. And being that I'm in love with a writer, he asked me to participate and to be part of the group by curating their space. And over this year, I've curated 4 art shows with Dina Bedenko, Lupita Shabasi, and Gerardo Sararte. All these artists have not only strong narrative work, and they're getting being introduced to a new audience, but they're also getting this experience of working with writers and making those collaborations. The last thing is that I grew up listening to the Beatles, and of course, being a Beatle and John lover, I decided to marry another artist, and I like to think that I'm the Yoko Ono and my husband's the John Lennon, but minus all the breakups. But I collaborate with him on a project called Vermin on the Mount, which is a literary program. This Saturday we're having a show at Space for Art. And did I mention I'm an artist too? So somewhere in there I create art too. So thank you very much.
Let's see. Well, collaboration is what I've been doing for a long time, and a lot of collaborations with my husband Bob, who's sitting right there. I will talk mostly about Space for Art. Have any of you been there? Would you raise your hand? A lot of people here. I want to invite the rest of you to come. 2 years ago it opened. About 5 years ago, when the economy collapsed, a friend and I were talking about the artists that were leaving downtown and leaving the center of the city and leaving San Diego. And she talked to me about how we needed an artist district or something to keep artists here. I started working with her, that was Naomi at Synergy, and realized that an arts district may be one of the things that drives artists out first, because that can be the beginning of gentrification, not always, but it can be what attracts other people to an area. So I started investigating what was happening around other cities, and a lot of them are making room for artists in permanent, low-cost, affordable artist space. And we've started investigating that, and we were looking at warehouses in 2009, and Bob and Chris War, another artist, found a warehouse in East Village. And not only was it a warehouse, but a big parking lot and another warehouse, and also some apartments. We were able to turn that 25,000 square feet into artist studios, 30 artist studios, and 5 work-live spaces. That project was done with the help of probably over 500 people. Collaboration is what we've always done, and this project is evidence of what that is, what that can accomplish. With people working together, you can create something because just the energy of working together, and oftentimes a larger scale the better, you can create a sense of excitement and a sense of energy and create a center of things happening. And I think that Space for Art has become that, and is becoming that way beyond what we imagined. We had over 1,000 people for our opening during the art lab, with over 100 artists and other people volunteering, and many groups are now coming to have shows at our place, as you probably heard from people here that are involved with us. These are some of the upcoming shows. This first slide shows the beginning of the open warehouse, and we were talking about the first people that were coming to volunteer to help build these studios. This is a model, and Bob's an architect, so he takes charge of the construction, and I don't know how he does it, but he can keep up to 5,000 people working at once. But this was more like 100 or 200 at a time. So these are some of the shots of people working together. These give you an idea of the events that are happening. Those are the first openings, and gives you a sense of our outside area. We've built a spectacular stage, and that is a modular system which we think can be used for other events out in the city. One of our concerns is that not only do artists have a right to be part of the creative economy that everybody's talking about, but we are concerned about perhaps maybe almost 99% of the people, if we're not aware, if we're not working on it, those people are going to be left out of the creative economy. Everybody's talking about this sort of creative, innovative stuff that's going to be happening. The question is, how do people get to be a part of that? So those are the questions we are looking at Space for Art, and at the same time we are looking for a permanent home. And we are also trying to look for innovative ways for artists to be part of the community, to collaborate together, to collaborate with other groups, and help make the creative economy a more fair society. Thank you.
Okay, this is the story of an obsession I have with a piece of ancient Aztec art. And this is a statue called Coatlicue. And Coatlicue was an ancient Aztec. She was an earth goddess. And her name means she who wears the serpent snake. And this is drawing was done in the 1500s by a European anthropologist. This is a photograph of that image. And it's now in the Anthropological Museum in Mexico City. She's 2.5 meters tall, and she weighs about 2 tons, which means she's about the size of an SUV, and I think there's an art project in there somewhere. This is a side view of the sculpture, and the legend behind her is that she gave birth to many children, one of which was Huitzilipotli, her son, who was born just in time to seek revenge on her murderous children who decapitated her. She's a very bloody goddess. She represents the creativity and also the violence of the powers of earth. This is another image of her, not quite as gruesome, not quite as intimidating, but you see the presence of the skulls, and perhaps there's some serpents in the motif as well. Images of life and death for the Aztecs. We think of snakes as scary, but they were positive images. These are images of some contemporary interpretations. I'm going to show you my own interpretation in a little while. This is a very, I guess you would call it a very sparkly representation of Coatlicue. She continues to resonate with artists in the Chicano community, and I was inspired to take on this subject matter after partaking in a performance art workshop with Guillermo Gomez Peña and La Pocha Nostra in 2007, and after that experience I was moved to do this piece, which I thought was a good way to address the sense of community that I experienced there. This is an early, this work started off as a collage of different bits and pieces from illustration encyclopedias, 19th century illustration encyclopedias, and you can see the basic elements here. I'll show you the more recent version. You can see the snake, the general outline. This This is the final version of that collage. And you can see in the center, the man and the woman is Frida Kahlo on the left and Guillermo Gomez Peña is on the right, and they're emerging from the heart. In a moment, I'm going to take you through some of the details of the image, but this gives you a sense of of the outlines of the graphic elements of it. This is the painting. It's large. It's about 4 feet by 5 feet, and it took me about 2 years to make this, so it was a long process. And with the color, you can start to see some of the images and the elements that are emerging. This is a close-up of the head, and you see that one of the things I wanted to do is contrast the element of the organic and the mechanical. Her head is actually composed of 2 serpents' heads facing each other, so that she's a dual-headed goddess. But I fuse them together, and I play a lot with the idea of roots and veins. As you scan down the image, these are more images of machinery, and you see the hand of the indigenous person, which is making the machine go. You also see some other elements, the roots and the veins, as they start merging together. And there's a close-up. There are a lot of details here, but on the left there's an image of a European hunter and his dog, a leitmotif, sort of the observer of the New World, of the Mesoamerican culture, as the Europeans came to the New World in the 15th century. This is the image of the snake, and here you can see a close-up image of Frida and Guillermo. Guillermo is a living artist. I think most of us know that Frida has passed away some years ago. So this is a kind of a marriage of 2 figures who are married symbolically. There's another pair of images here. On the left, you see a man staring through a window, somewhat frightened and aghast at what he's looking at, and then on the right, you see an image actually which is etched, engraved by Posada, who is author of the Calavera images, drinking not drunk on liquor but on Coca-Cola. Here's the superhero figure who is intervening in all of this narrative, and he's plunging his head into the skull of a Mayan sculpture, and it's bursting forth with liquid gold. Here down at the bottom, you see a sense of the head, and the Posada Calaveras on the right, the man and the woman who are dancing, doing the Totentanz, the dance of death. The images of women that you see up in the upper left and right-hand corner were also Posada images. He illustrated for newspapers, and these were images of women who their sad story was that they were refugees and they were forced out of their homeland to another area in Mexico, forced to leave their families. It's very much a story about mothers and female power, and so it was very important for me to populate this image with the faces of the people of Mexico. Another image, just a close-up, just of that piece of machinery, which functions as the eye of the figure. I wanted to say that over the 300 years of Coatliqui's existence, she was buried and exhumed 4 times by the Spaniards. Every time they would bring her up, the indigenous people would begin to worship her, and the Catholic priest would immediately order her back into the ground. In 1820, General Porfirio Diaz unearthed her for the final time, and she's been above ground ever since. I'd like to say in conclusion that I think that perhaps the reason that this image appeals to me so much is that she, I think, sets the paradigm for the original underground art. Gloria Andalzua wrote a book called Borderlands, and she talks about the Coatlicue state, which is a state of creativity, which arises out of an experience of oppression and the resistance to that oppression. And so the image of Coatlicue is an image of both resistance and creativity in the Chicano culture. Thank you.
So, where's Coatlicue when you need her? My idea was to bring all of our speakers here today, because it was a way for our students to understand all the varied things that are going on in our community here in San Diego, in terms of collaborations, in terms of interesting spaces, in terms of connections to the neighborhoods and to the communities. I feel that our colleges, our universities are these temples of knowledge, but oftentimes we're isolated, and you even have to navigate and around these little islands to even find your way. And so I think it's really important for our students and young people to go out and see what's going on and what offerings are out there, and that's why I wanted to bring all of you here today. And I hope that there's some questions maybe from the audience for our panelists about what they're doing, or I know that many of them, David White posed some questions about artists' role and how they connect to the neighborhoods, to their communities. So what I'll do right now is just open it up for questions from the audience, and we have a mic over here, and then you could address either one person in the panel, or if you want a couple of people to answer that would be fine too.
For Space for Art, the Cube projects, how far out are you planning the themes for those? I notice sometimes like the call for entry kind of as theme, but it seems to come up very quickly. Do you have themes planned further out in advance by chance?
I think for the Halloween event, what did we call it?
Hell House.
Hell House, yes. That sort of just popped up, and so we didn't have a lot of opportunities to develop them because it was just, let's try that. But we are considering ways that we can go out in the community. So it's all a modular system that's designed and can be very portable. So we are thinking about ways that it can be out to claim public space, or to bring attention to public space and artists working in public spaces. They can be galleries, they can be podiums, there are always ways that they can be used. So this is the beginning of an experiment with that. And also part of what we're just thinking about today as a concept for a grant that we're applying for is to find ways to lure college, university students to downtown to investigate neighborhoods, to collaborate with local neighborhoods on public projects, etc. So cubes can also be part of that.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask,
all of you presented tremendously energetic and exciting ideas that you have generated, you have come together to generate with other people. I thought of Susan Myrland, first of all, when I was formulating this question, that you go out into the community, or you are in your community looking to have venues for artists, and you have all this energy, and we all know that you encounter obstacles. And I'd love to know a little bit about how you deflect them, or how you dealt with them, especially with the art labs. They must have come up, certainly geographically, because you were so widespread, and anything about that experience of how you found ways to work through them. And I think you all definitely had, especially the sushi shutting down and other things, neighbors. So.
I drank a lot of beer. I went to a lot of art shows, and I drank a lot of beer and ate a lot of chips. But seriously, it was a process of meeting people and talking to them and finding out what their goals were, and finding the areas of commonality and what would interest people, and just basically working from there. One of the things that was risky about the art labs is that it was entirely artist-driven, and basically, from my perspective as a curator, if somebody had decided the day before that they were going to do something completely different, I wasn't going to change that. As long as they stayed within those parameters of making a statement about San Diego, they had free reign to do whatever they wanted. That caused me enormous anxiety, but it really worked out well. But so really, honestly, I can't think of a lot of a lot of obstacles that I ran into. It was hard to get people to leave the fair and come to events.
I guess one way would be that just trying to stay focused on like a core set of questions that you're trying to work through, or a core set of ideas that you're trying to just put out into the world. That seems like a good way to stay focused on when you run into obstacles. I guess another thing that I always try to keep in mind is I saw something on TV one time, and it was about the happiest countries in the world or something like that. And they interviewed people in Denmark, and Denmark was the happiest. And they asked them why, and they said they had low expectations. But it's kind of it seemed like kind of a sweat. And it's not that you don't expect to get a lot done, but it's that you are just happy with what you get. Sort of.
Well, in terms of obstacles, yeah. I try to maintain the idea that it's not just for artists, it's for people that are not making work, but they might want to do something or experiment with the space, Therefore, bring them in, and perhaps it becomes a process of collaborating or mentorship, working with those people, or with the artists that come in. And the premise for the garage is that you just don't come and just plop your work down. You interact with the space and perhaps air out an idea you've wanted to experience before, and start that conversation with the work, and then see where it goes from there, basically. Networking, social media has been really great. Facebook, in terms of getting people in. Sustainability. What is that? I think that's a measure we all have to come to terms with. For me, it's the community, in respect of having a place to go once a month, meeting people, whether that's 10 people or 100 people. And that's satisfying enough. So as allowing the idea to dictate, not the usual model of the idea of exhibition space, but just the idea. And once it manifests itself, then that's sustainable enough.
Obstacles. I think the biggest learning experience in being involved in the community and to work in a collaborative is the own obstacle of not having control. And I think that's what Susan's talking about too. And so I think that, for me, being a person that is very controlling by nature, just, psychologically scarred by my parents. But, no, just kidding, they did a great job. But I've had to let go of the control, and especially when working with other collaborators that, they like to design things the night before, and they like to send out invitations the night before, or, different things, but I'm not criticizing them, because I do the things the night before, hence my presentation. But I think that's the thing, that it's been more of my own obstacle of letting go and knowing that things are going to be okay, people are going to show up, and that's what's important, that we're all creating a space for people to, for the community to come and enjoy art, regardless if you're an artist, an art maker, a viewer, a purchaser. Now you have this space, so take advantage of us, please.
Do you want to talk about obstacles? One thing is, you find out artists that want to do art mostly have to have other full-time jobs. So in our case, getting people to volunteer and put in time to do projects is hard. Everybody's working, trying to support themselves. Again, getting everybody to agree to certain objectives is always an interesting process, even between two people. And then wondering how long these processes and these projects that are very successful now, how they will continue. And what is their lifespan? Should we look for permanent housing for artists? Should we do something else? I don't know. So I guess just wondering where we're going, and all of that is part of what's hard sometimes. Any more comments?
Obstacles to making art. Could you say that's the question? That's what I'm getting. I was a couple hours ago. I was getting ready for this talk tonight, and I was getting my notes together. So I went to a restaurant because I was hungry, and while I was waiting for my food, I thought, well, I'll make some notes and jot down some ideas. And I couldn't think because I was too hungry. And it sounds silly, but you know, if you can't feed yourself, you can't do very much. And we've got a lot of people on the streets that can't even feed themselves, you know, and we're making art and it's great, but there are a lot of people who are in a very difficult position in this society. And it's a pretty good, it's nice to remind ourselves every now and then of what we have. I think, you know, beyond the basics of being able to feed yourself and shelter yourself and do all those things, the obstacles that I find, because I'm a teacher, are getting students to realize what their own potential is, and you know, what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. So when I get a new bunch of students, I come in and I ask them to identify themselves out of a group of animals. These animals are from the Shaolin School of Kung Fu. So they say, are you a dragon? A dragon is a mythical conceptual animal that rides the wind with emotion. Or are you a tiger? The tiger is bold and emotional, and it's spontaneous. Are you a snake? A snake has a rhythmic endurance and it creates beautiful patterns. Are you a crane? A crane is balanced and rooted. There's one more maybe. And there's the praying mantis. Praying mantis is patient and cultivates stillness in order to create action. So once students are able to identify what their creativity is, they can then begin to grow. But I think the obstacle for individuals, and especially young artists, is just like trying to figure out, you know, what the hell it is that you're all about, where your strengths lie. Maybe you're not the kind of artist who goes into public. Maybe you're an artist who prefers to stay in the studio. But I think the thing that you have to remember is that as your persona, as time develops, you may indeed evolve from a praying mantis into a tiger. So it's a journey, it's a path, you just have to stick with it.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Are there any more questions or other questions? Burning question. You want to mic? Okay, we can just.
So, in terms of 2011, San Diego, do you see things as having improved over the last decade? And like in terms of connections between artists and arts organizations, do you see that growing? Like, do you feel positive about it, or why?
Okay. Yeah, I feel very positive about it. I was very fortunate to be in the position that I was with the Art Labs, to be able to see people working outside of their organizations, you know, like Space for Art did. They really reached outside their building to get other people involved. David did that. You know, really everybody did, and people had fun with it. And one of the things that someone told me, one of the success factors was the fact that it happened over the summer. So students were out of school, faculty were on break, people were just hanging out like, hey, let's do this fun thing. And that's how it grew from an initial 33 proposals and about, 40 artists to 250 people. It just kept growing and growing and growing. And I think it was a very positive experience for people. And at the end of it, people said, let's keep doing this. Let's keep talking to each other. We're in a market that we don't have a lot of resources. We don't have a lot of things that we can take for granted. So let's work together instead of compete. So I'm stupidly optimistic right now, frankly.
It's been really great the last few years. I mean, I've been in San Diego for about 6 years now, and it just seems like I've been kind of ups and downs, but it seems like it's a really interesting place. And one of the complaints is, like, I guess as an arts community, is that everything's spread out so much, and that we're kind of in this network, I guess, and not necessarily a dense area. But I think there's good. Like kind of the cost-benefit analysis again. Like, I mean, there's positive and negatives of that. In some ways, it's beneficial to have things work in little nodes. In that it, as soon as you start to label something as a particular thing, then it always sort of gets subsumed to that. Like you're always like Little Italy, for example, in San Diego. I mean, it's kind of like a Disneyland version of Little Italy. It's not like, and if so as you start to label something like that, it sort of takes on this this sort of singular image, and maybe gets appropriated by forces that you do not want to be appropriated by. But at the same time, it's good to have these connections made. So I think it's like trying to find this good balance between those two.
It's adaptation. The idea of perhaps a graffiti artist ends up being a graffiti artist, perhaps because he doesn't have the space or canvas. And at that point, you have to be more creative. It's kind of like on the fringe. My wife and I have been here for about 11 years now, and we've seen a lot of really interesting stuff come and go. And it's always been a question of sustainability for me. That's why we do the garage. That it's part of our mortgage, and we figured we could do it every month. Maybe something will take root. Well, it really hasn't taken root. I hate to be negative about it, but it's we try to maintain a positive attitude about it. And the other side of it is you do need to be creative in respect of what resources you're working with, and rethinking the usual model of art practice. What is that? In San Diego, the positive part about it, coming from a performance art basis, is the fact that it's always kind of like this vanilla facade, this kind of blank canvas, which lends itself to a lot of surprising possibilities within performance art. And that's more of a tactical idea versus a strategical idea in respect of having a center base. When we get too strategical about it, I think that's when we have too many hopes and we have too many investments within that. So it's kind of, you have to maneuver around situations in order. It's a very situational thing being here. And economics is a product of us still being, in all honesty. I might be back in Asheville, North Carolina at this point. But along the way, we have generated community. There's a few people that have remained over the course of 11 years that became, established some really good friendships. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
With Mercado Golondrina, every time we have an event, it's I always throw out an evaluation of the event that we have, and it really we throw it out really to see how the different artists and vendors and crafters and people that are trying to have this home-based business, how they feel about the work that we did in producing it, but also the response that they got from the community. And one of the things that I always tell new vendors is that you have to be very persistent and but not persistent with the customers, but persistent with what your goals, your own personal goals, because there is events that we have had, and we've had 20 people come and look at 20 vendors, that's a bad ratio. But really the thing is that in the end, all the collaborative that happens between the vendors and the communication that happens through the vendors outweighs it, because now there's a support system. So it goes back to like this kind of collaboration that gets ignited and communication that gets ignited between different artists that are doing very different things, but it works, and it just goes to show that it's a community that it's right there. All you have to do is put the platform out for it. So I'm just honored to be able to work with so many artists that are willing to trust in this idea that I have and that my collaborators have. So persistence.
I would say that it's probably been very good for the arts that the economy collapsed, because the development fever in downtown was just, and everywhere, it was just part of Wall Street, I suppose. But one of the things that we are trying to work on is to establish a permanent home for the arts downtown. The museum alone can't bring all the culture to the downtown area, and the question is, where do the arts belong? It's when there's I think a central area where artists can be in contact with each other is, at least at our place, has been incredibly exciting to see the synergy and the excitement of artists supporting each other and finding a place to do that. I think it's possible in other arts like North Park it's happening as well. When you have other artists that you can hang out with that are in your neighborhood. I think that we can establish that in various parts of San Diego. But it seems to me that the downtown, and that's the biggest challenge, of course, because the real estate is the most costly, there needs to be an artist presence downtown to kind of counteract the sports bar, tourist bar, Disneyland that the Gaslamp has become. But the challenges are certainly there as to how to achieve that, and how do artists sell art in San Diego? I think that you're looking at a whole new world of what art is, and art is part of an investment strategy for a lot of people, and a lot of the biggest art collectors in San Diego they get their advice from their LA or their New York galleries, who advise them what good investments are. I think bringing art to the streets and communities is a way that artists can operate outside of that particular system, and they're different, although many artists will operate in many different ways.
I think one of the signs of a healthy cultural San Diego is the fact that we're the craft beer capital, craft beer capital. I mean, I think that makes it's kind of hard to extract the art world out of San Diego and put it under a microscope and ask yourself, is it good, is it bad, is it positive, is it negative? I think that it's part of an organic, up from the bottom culture, things that are growing in San Diego, and it's one of several cultures that are growing, and I think it's healthy. I'm a little bit fatalistic because I've been in San Diego since 1987, and I see some faces up there. I've been here equally long, and in those days, you would punch. You'd be like punching thin air because there was no response. Very little response. Now you can throw an artistic punch at it, and you can land it. And I think for young artists who are coming up, one of the things that I hope that you develop is a willingness to cooperate in the dialogue that goes with growing an art community. That can be many things to different people. David started Agitprop Blog, which is an extension of his project Agitprop Space, and so we're doing our part to create some dialogue around art. And you guys can do it too. I challenge you to do it.
How do we know what's going on at any given time in San Diego? Is there like a master calendar?
There's many. There's how about 5?
I know that City Beat puts out, and with some, it's pretty comprehensive. But I mean, I feel like does that exist? Just like some major.
Do you want me to shout out a couple of them?
Yeah. Cool.
Facebook has Catch the Light, Tart San Diego, Catch the Light, and then
San Diego Art Guide.
San Diego Art Guide, the City Beat,
San Diego Visual Arts Network.
San Diego Visual Arts Networks, SDVAN.com.
.net.
One of those, San Diego Visual Arts Network. So there's a lot of different resources, but one of the things that people always ask me, and I always just say, it's always good to just start in one neighborhood, and find out where, because Little Italy has their art night on
Fridays, first Friday of the month. North Park has the second Saturday of the month. God, this is like a quiz. This is how little, this is what happens when you don't have TV. You go to things.
Depends on taste and interest.
Yeah, it
Depends on taste and interest. You have to find what guide serves your particular interest best.
and like the website of Space for Art, I mean, they have a full month programming. So definitely check out those and good luck. Or take my flyers.
Join our first Facebook page. We use Facebook a lot to reach out to our students. Like I use that, it's not just promotion for our gallery or for what we're doing, but I also touch base on a lot of things that are going on because my students are out there in the community, our faculty is out there in the community. So I try to cover, some things that are going on. So that's a good way. And also the places, if you go to a place and you like what they're doing, just check on their website or many social media is an easy way now to get connected. Oh yeah, there's several art bloggers through the Union Tribune that you can also go there and they cover many events that are going on all over the city.
What's your question?
Where is the garage? No, where the garage?
It's on Alabama Street, 4141 Alabama Street. Yeah, I actually bought some cards.
Okay.
I'll pick up the card on the way out. The next show is the 22nd, which is Saturday. Our schedules sometimes are, we've had a show every month since 2008. And on occasions we'll have a show during the day, which all day, so we extend the opportunity to come and go and have more conversation. Sometimes the traditional night we'll have right down from the live wire. That helps.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I just, Perry also Southwestern College has some great shows out there.
Yeah, Southwestern College.
Yes, great shows. So I'm going to do a little plug now.
Okay.
My museum, well, how has the arts community grown? When I was hired here 10 years ago, I had one student in my advanced museum studies class. Now I've had 9 students this semester are curating an exhibit. Last semester we had 10 students. These are my advanced students. My beginning class is also wonderful because they help us put together the exhibition. So I want to thank those who are here. But one of the ways I see our community grow is our students are curating this wonderful show at Space for Art. Thank you, Cheryl, for letting us use your space. And it's Still Is Interrupted. It features Kevin Cow, who's also one of our students here and also was part of my course. And I'm excited to see Nuvia and Susan actually went through our museum studies program and now they're doing amazing things out in the community. And our students are interning in many of the different organizations for the photography exhibit and for Space for Art and sushi and many other places. So that's a little plug for us. Thank you very much for coming. And thank you so much to our panel. You're wonderful. I'm sorry I put you through the Pechakusha torture, but survived.